So I recently heard about this CEI, or Corporate Equality Index, which is really just a racist, heterophobic system set up by white homosexuals to destroy equal opportunity protections that were fought for by blacks in this country. And I wanted to give my thoughts on it. So, for those who don't know, the Corporate Equality Index is a system that grades businesses on how many homosexuals that they hire. That's basically what it is. They'll give you all this other nonsense about what it is, but in reality, it's just that. White homosexuals use their power and money to rig the system in their favor once again. So you hear all this talk about the LGBT being this underserved minority group that needs all kinds of protections and help because they're so powerless and so weak. So therefore, we need to do everything we can to help them. But in reality, the LGBT is really just a front that is used to pull in support from all communities to empower the white community. So the LGBT is supposed to be meant as a group for homosexuals. So black, Hispanic, and Asian homosexuals will all work to support and prop up this group. But mainly, the LGBT was established by white homosexuals to help homosexuals within white society. Since they're such a small group, they use this LGBT rainbow flag to rope in all these other races of people so that they could make their group bigger, gain more strength, more reach, and ultimately get more power. Once at the top, they'll slowly start to erase the black, Hispanic, and Asian homosexual presence, and LGBT will then be synonymous with white homosexuality. That's what I believe. And I believe that this Corporate Equality Index is a great example of just that. So apparently, homosexuals needed something to help give them equality in the workplace. So this scoring system was created. And if you're a company and you want to gain access to more funding, grants, and you want to be in a better position to have partnerships with other companies and just have benefits and power more for yourself going forward, you need to have a high CEI score. So what do you think that means in this capitalistic society? Well, if you're a business and you want to succeed and grow, you're going to do whatever you have to do in order to gain access to more money. And if that means hiring more homosexuals or promoting homosexuality, then you're going to do just that. And with that being said, I have a question. How does a hiring company know which of its applicants rides the baloney pony? I've hired people in the past and never knew who was or wasn't homosexual. How can you discriminate against a homosexual when you don't even know if the person standing in front of you is a homosexual? That is why I say the LGBT is a white group that uses other races to help prop themselves up. Blacks have complained about this discrimination for years now. And that's because when we go on interviews, the company can clearly see that we're black. And if they wanted to discriminate against us by not considering us for the role just because we're black, well, they could do just that. So blacks had to fight very hard, I might add, to set up a system to make sure white society didn't purposely discriminate against us. People like Thurgood Marshall and others fought very hard for this. And despite having this equal opportunity system in place, white society is still able to discriminate against us. So blacks have been the ones who have actually been discriminated against just because they look different from the dominant society. White homosexuals took that well-known racist practice that was used to systematically impoverish the black community, and they used it to benefit themselves. Because if you're a white homosexual and you go on a job interview, how would the person interviewing you know that you were a homosexual? How would they even have the chance to discriminate against you as a homosexual? They would have no idea that you're a homosexual, unless you started talking about sex and your sex life. And then at that point, they may not hire you just because you're doing something inappropriate at a job interview. When I've interviewed for jobs in the past, I never sat down and talked about my love for vagina. That's nobody's business. So no one would know that I'm heterosexual. It's the same for homosexuals. No company would know if you're homosexual. So how in the hell would they even have the chance to discriminate against your sexual preference or identity or whatever they're calling it this week? They wouldn't. They wouldn't know. So that whole narrative that homosexuals were being discriminated against in the workplace is all bullshit. Once again, whites have used the plight of the black community to get policies, bills, and laws passed that would help white society. So let's get back to this whole heterophobic CEI scam. If a company doesn't know your sexual preference when interviewing you, then how would they get a high CEI score? How would the people behind the scoring system know that the company is hiring more homosexuals? Well, if you've applied to a job in the last few years, you may recall coming across questions like this. Now, this is why I call this whole practice heterophobic and actually discriminatory, because the government has initiated a practice that basically tells companies that if they want more money and more benefits, they need to hire more homosexuals. And then if an applicant fills out their job application and puts that they're a homosexual on the application, then wouldn't the company be more inclined to hire this person over others? Because by hiring them, they would get a higher CEI score. And that would open them to greater access to government grants, benefits, and goodies. Which is why you see so many companies pushing homo stuff. Because there is now a direct financial incentive to do so. And we all know that most, if not all, companies put profits over people. So they'll do whatever it takes to enrich themselves further, and that includes discriminating against heterosexual applicants and favoring homosexual applicants.
This is where the Corporate Equality Index came in. It started in 2002 and has grown into this massive actual scoring and rating system that companies are judged on by other companies, suppliers, and more importantly, financial investors.
This is why all these companies are going woke. If they get a bad score, then the woke investor funds start putting pressure on the boards. Woke activists are mobilized out in the streets. Advertising campaigns are shut down. And anyone that continues to do business with them will also be penalized. This is fascism. Let me give you this quote. Large businesses typically rely on other businesses for goods and services. And the business of the size included in the CEI typically have set standards and guidelines already embedded in their procurement. To ensure that suppliers act in a manner that adheres to a business's own standards, businesses must establish standards of conduct that set expectations for the behavior of their suppliers. Blackmail.
How is this right? And if you complain, they'll accuse you of targeting a protected minority group. Funny. Protected minority group. What's funny about that statement is we all know how easily it is for some people to lie and say they're homosexual just to get whatever they want at the time. Then you find out that they were lying. What that means is this. If you're a white person, you can just say you're a homosexual on your application. The company will move you forward in the interview process because they want to hire more homosexuals and bolster their CEI score. Then when the actual interview happens and the company sees that you're a white person, what's to stop a racist interviewer from hiring that person because they're not black or Hispanic or whatever race they hate? And again, if enough people complain or start complaining about this, the company will just say, well, we are being inclusive because we're hiring from this protected minority group. Because LGBT is a protected minority group. That means a white person who just says they're a homosexual is now a member of a protected minority group. So to go back to what I was saying in the beginning, this whole LGBT push has been used by white homosexuals to help empower white society. Because now anyone in the dominant white society can easily lie and just say they're homosexual, and they now have access to even more rights than they did before because they're a part of this new protected minority group, even though they're white. So to all my black brothers and sisters who happen to be homosexual, you think that by supporting the LGBT movement, you're helping yourselves? Well, think again. All you're doing is helping white society destroy protections that were put in place by your ancestors to help you. And once white homosexuals feel like they don't need you anymore, they'll just dump you out onto the street. And to all my heterosexual brothers and sisters of every race, by supporting the LGBT, you're working to concentrate power to a small group of already powerful white men and women who will then use that power to choke you even more than you've been choked before. Wake up and pay attention to what's going on around you.